All right. Hello. Welcome to IBEdamned presents Carpool Conversation. And our guest is Lauren Polly. Lauren Polly has two first names, y'all. But that's okay. I am so happy to have her on the show. Happy to have you here with us. And we are up live. Of course, seems like this is kind of one of those I don't know, platforms you just got to get used to. But we're here and I'm excited to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy the technology gods are smiling on us thus far. So,
Yes, thank you. Well, first and foremost, I know you're over there in California, lovely California, and thankfully here in Louisiana, we missed out on the bulk of the tropical storm. We thought we were going to get a lot more wind, a lot more damage, and we survived. So I'm excited about that. You're always in a place where it's always sunny, like what,
mhm.
73 degrees?
Yeah, 72 and sunny, they like to say. There's a lot of fog, though. I live by the beach, but it's still gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, girl, just loving it, loving it. I'm a little envious right now. But um, let's get right into it because this 30 minutes, girl, they will go by very, very quickly. I see folks are starting to come in, of course. As always, lovely to see your faces. We have Jacinta, Farron. Thank y'all so much. That's right. Start inviting folks to come through, boo. And I'm just loving the tribe. These ladies are wonderful, and I think you're gonna fall right in, Lauren. So of course, folks are like, okay, well, tell us about Lauren. As always, we like to talk about our guests. Who is Lauren Polly? Well, Lauren Polly is a certified speech pathologist who runs a hospital department, a holistic mental health speaker, life coach, and drum roll, ladies and gentlemen, she's also an empath. And that really threw me by surprise because like, okay, she's not just a life coach, she's also an empath. What I like about you and what you do is that you recommend healthy alternatives, right? Like meditation, and you're also a life coach. Your license is through an energetics based system. So when I told you I want to talk about soul ties, when we're talking about toxic relationships, you were like, yeah, we can talk about that because that's kind of like, what you talk about. That's what you deal with. But in addition to all of that, she's also the multi-award winning author of her book, The Other Side of Bipolar. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're giving you a virtual applause through Facebook.
Awesome.
Great. So let's talk about toxic relationships, right? You know, I think, is it safe to say that, you know, you, me, everybody, we've come across at least one toxic person in our lifetime?
Mhm. There's more out there than we would like to probably admit to. And there's also like different levels of it. There are the people where you're like, oh my God, I talked to them and I'm drained. Or I'm really tense because I'm waiting for like the slap to come, the energetic and or the emotional slap. And then there's also the ones that are like super insidious where they're just not healthy for you. They're not in your best interest and they don't really push you to be all of you and to continue to grow, and that can be very erosive over time. So there's people in all walks of life, family, friends, romance, work relationships, you name it. They're kind of all over the place.
Now, of course, and I'm seeing that we may be having kind of a delay, but that's okay. You guys stick with us. I welcome you to also give us your comments, feedback, whatever you like to ask, because Lauren said she is open to questions and comments. But I wanted to go back to the whole comment or the topic of toxic relationships. You have to define there's abusive relationships and then there's toxic relationships. And I think with toxic relationships, there's a chance of recovery or there's a chance of it changing from toxic to healthy. Whereas abusive, that may be something you may have to walk away from completely.
Yeah. And the abusives really have like the non negotiables, you know what I mean? Where you're physically in danger, you're emotionally in danger. And more than anything, that person will not change. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what's really important to start recognizing who in your life is actually capable of changing if you were to have those honest conversations with them about how you want to be treated.
Right, exactly. And the impact of toxic relationships that they can have on you. I mean, they can tear down your self-confidence, your self-worth, even your degree of happiness moving forward. So let's talk about how do you tackle that? how do you have the conversations? Because with everything, and I guess it always goes back to the age old, maybe even adage that folks and older people tell you, it all comes back to communication.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to get clear in your own communication first. Most of us don't know what we want. And I think you don't really know what you want sometimes until you have what you don't want. And then you're like, wait a second, this actually isn't working for me. So I think that's like the starting place. I mean, even just as a journaling exercise right now, you can actually list out your top like 5 relationships in your life. What do you like about them? What's working for you? What do you don't like about them? What's not working for you? That way you start to get super clear on what do I actually desire, because that's where you have to start that communication from. Otherwise, it's almost like too abstract for people to be able to actually deliver on.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, we talk about the other person, but isn't it us? I mean, we can hold ourselves in a victimhood state. We can always blame everybody else, but what about blaming ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you have to really look. This is a tough conversation and something not so fun to look at, but how much do you love drama? How much do you love feeling like the one, oh, I have no choice in the matter here? How much do you love the fire of the intensity because it gets you either turned on or it gives you just something that you've been seeking? Because a lot of us seek certain energies, but we seek them in unhealthy ways because, again, we're not clear. And this is actually something that works for me. And if you were honest with that, you could probably find healthier ways to fill those desires, but you have to really look at where are you feeding the beast, so to speak, because all relationships are a two-way street. You're in there co-creating, and you've created what you have already, but now you get to create something different if you choose to.
Right. You know what? Let's go back to that because you can be a glutton for punishment, right? You love the drama, right? So you say, well, you're the reason why this is happening, but yet you constantly go back.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't separated those ties, right? Let's get right into soul ties because that takes me to when people say, "Oh, it's you," but yet you're still going back and you're still staying there. So something has kept you kind of connected.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times we are more connected than we think we are. That goes back to the whole empath thing, right? But if you look greater than just this one life, you actually look at your past lives too. A lot of times you end up bopping around with the same group of people. So it's like when you meet somebody in a bar and you automatically imprint on them, like, this is my one, this is my person. It's your long term friendships when you meet them and you're just like, oh, I feel like I've known you forever. Sometimes family is the same way. We kind of flip flop roles. So trying to get freedom in this life gets super interesting when you're kind of like, you don't just have the history of the 5 years you've been together. You've got the history of, oh my goodness, the lifetimes with that. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned family too, because even though we're talking about at this point right now relationships, but that includes your friends, that includes your family members. Sharon B says some want attention, even if it's toxic attention.
Yes. But see, that's the thing. That's where you have to look at where you're doing that and also get clear on like where the other person's coming from. I've had a lot of people in my life where that's their basic need that they want to have fulfilled. They just want attention. They don't care how they get it. And a lot of us learn that when we're itty bitty. The only time mom and dad paid attention was when I was hurt. So guess what they do is they create hurt because they think that's somehow going to get them the attention that they want. So that's where the relationship comes in. Where are you playing it? And then also all the other people in your life, where are they functioning from? What's their basic need? You
Right.
know?
Right. And
So.
Tanya, who I know has a background in social work, also sometimes you can have a savior complex.
Oh, I know nothing about that, Tanya. I think so many of us are like innately we're healers. And what I mean by healer, it's not kind of like what you think of where you lay hands on somebody and their body changes, although that's included. It's truly you have the ability to make things better. You enter a business and you make the business better. You enter a relationship and you lift them up. And because you have the ability to do that, but also you have a deep caring for other people, that gets twisted a lot into this superiority and savior complex. And that's a really
Mhm.
cool trick out of it if you want to start playing with that. When you start noticing yourself wanting to save or wanting to fix, if you ask yourself, how superior am I being in this moment? Because in your
Mhm.
own mind, you think you're better than that person. You think you know what's best for them. And
Mhm.
truly, they're the only one who can know that, and they're the only one who can choose it. It's a good trick to get you out of that mindset.
Right, right.
Oh.
So, so let's. I do want to talk about. So, for those folks who don't know what soul ties is, you've actually you call it something else, and can you define it?
Yeah, and I don't really have like a great definition for it. I think the metaphysical world calls soul ties like when you're with people throughout multiple lifetimes, so therefore your souls are intertwined. I like to think of it as kind of junky energy, where you get all these little, kind of like an octopus with its little tentacles, and they get wrapped around, and you create something with somebody, and before you know it, you don't know what's theirs and what's yours. It's kind of like if you get divorced, you have to divide the assets. And
Yeah.
sometimes our souls are like that. That's our greatest asset. And when you do want to kind of make a clean break and move forward, there has to be that division of assets and like what's actually mine and what is based on the past that no longer exists.
Right.
That's a
Right.
really powerful question whenever you feel that kind of imprinting happen where you're like, I'm so, like, as an example, there was a doctor. I work at a hospital, and a couple years ago, I was so attracted to him. I just thought, like, this is the one. We're going to be together forever. Meanwhile, he was engaged and happily in this relationship for years. I
Mhm.
imprinted on him, and I finally got, after looking at it for myself, how much my soul had been tied to his, my being intertwined. Where that when I met him, I fell into that pattern of like, this is the one. And to hear him talk on his cell phone to his fiance, I would get really upset. There was nothing in this time frame that would actually speak to why I would. We were just coworkers and friends. But that's a really
Wow.
good example of when those emotions don't match reality in this moment, you may be
Wow.
dealing with it. Yeah.
That sounds like, I'm sorry, Lauren, I gotta say, that sounds like some unrequited love situation going on. Because he wasn't even aware. Like, you know, it's like, baby, this some lifetime stuff.
But see, and this is the thing that comes up with what do you think unrequited love comes from? A lot of times you're feeling really tied to something that actually isn't for this moment. And it's really hard to break yourself free and see other possibilities if you're functioning from that. But luckily I had these tools and I was willing to go, you know what? A lot of my emotional stuff right now, nothing to do with what's going on in this moment. I wonder where it's coming from.
And some of that can go into a future relationship if you don't handle that. And
Mm-hmm.
also those soul ties can also stem from a sexual relationship too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You get, because we get intertwined with each other. And it's so funny how we don't even just do that romantically and sexually. I mean, past lifetimes where you've built businesses with each other and now you're having a hard time creating on your own. Are you waiting for that invisible partner to show up and support you?
Hmm.
All the family dynamics and drama that we kind of get insidious in. Sometimes it's just stuff that's really been stuck for a long time.
Hmm.
Being able to actually clear the energy, be clear on kind of what's going on. And my favorite trick for that is a tool from Access Consciousness. It's called the clearing statement. It's a magic wand. It basically works to just kind of get rid of all this old stuck energy. It sounds like jibber jabber, but what it sounds like is everything that has you tied to all of the emotional people in your life that are unhealthy for you, will you destroy and uncreate it all? And we're asking to destroy and uncreate the energy, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds.
Okay.
It's this one's super out of the box, but it's so effective. If you go to theclearingstatement.com, you'll actually find an explanation of it. But that's the one thing I found super helpful when like you're aware that it's past stuff and it's still holding you
Uh-huh.
back. If you run the clearing statement with that, that actually just helps move the energy. So it works to untangle those little soul ties, as you call them.
Okay, so before we head on, I just want, of course, I love to get the tribe involved. Thank you, Adele, for coming through. She says she's speaking my testimony for sure. India Francis says so true. We got a gentleman in the building. Jermaine Grimm says learning, and Tanya, which is up on the screen right now, she said that's awesome. What part of this is me, and what part of this have I carried from a previous relationship? But
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to what you were saying about the clearing, right? So, does this also involve salt and sage?
I actually have never done that. Do you know what I mean? Back in my metaphysical days, I was really into crystal. I'm a yoga teacher. I've kind of been around the block with everything. I find so often when we're doing things like that, we've made the past so big and so significant, it makes it harder to move. So, whatever you want to do to clear the energy, there's tons of different techniques out of there. Just kind of watch whatever significance you're putting around it. The lightness of touch is actually incredibly creative, especially when dealing with energy stuff that doesn't have a mind component to it. What I mean by that is it makes no sense based on reality, but it's here anyway. That's
Right.
usually energy, not mind stuff. Yeah.
And look, I'm plugging up. We're starting to get some rain. So
Here it
tell me if you
comes.
can hear me.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. I had to plug in because here comes the rain. But okay, so now because this time will go by quickly, so I got to kind of touch and go here. By the way, folks, if you haven't already done so, please share this. I love having the conversation. You guys getting involved. It's awesome. And of course, she's taking questions and she's learning. I'm learning, and hopefully, you're learning as well. But one of the things I wanted to get to were deal breakers or what you call non-negotiables, because that's I ain't gonna lie. Deal breakers are the things you think about in the beginning of the relationship, but those things can also progress, I think, throughout the relationship because you start to see things that you never saw before.
Mhm. Yeah. And it speaks to what we talked about before, where sometimes you don't know what you want until you have something and you've tried it out and go, wait a second, this actually isn't it. And a lot of us, if we've entered into a relationship, we kind of get this weird thing of like, it's too late now. Like, I've already gone this far, and we don't renegotiate as we go. We kind of have those beginning conversations. So I think it's really important to keep that thing in mind as you move forward. That's like a constant journal exercise. That's a constant clarity exercise for yourself. And when you get that first initial gut thing of like, I don't like the way I'm getting talked to, I don't enjoy the way I'm getting treated. Even if it's something really minor, the kinder you are to speak it early before you get all the resentment and the drama and the shove it down stuff that comes up, it's going to be easier to actually have those negotiable conversations. But the non negotiables, those are things that, like, no matter what, that's not going to work for you. You know,
Uh huh.
these are things that I'm actually not willing to compromise on, and relationship is compromise. You're going to meet somebody to co-create with them, but you may get clear later on down the road that, hey, I developed this, but I'm not enjoying it, and this is actually something I'm not willing to live with or live without.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, look, I got India up. She says the fact that you're aware and open to change says a lot. I'm proud of you. She said more of us need to do this, and not many men do this. Would you agree that men aren't aware or maybe not open to doing that, to making those changes?
Well, men and women are just super different. You know what I mean? Like, men usually, they don't have a lot of subtext. They usually call it like they see it, and they're kind of, I don't want to say surface because they're not superficial, but they're very, very direct. And women, we're super complex. We say things that we kind of mean and kind of don't mean, or they mean something different, and we expect them to understand. So there's a lot of communication breakdowns. Like, as a woman talking to a man, the more clear you can be on what you want. That's why I said make a list. Don't make it abstract. Actually have deliverables of how it will look. That will actually make this conversation go easier. And you have to really look at the other person. A lot of women sometimes get in relationships thinking that, hey, this man has he's got good ingredients I can work with, and maybe I can stir them a different way and create a new kind of recipe.
Yes, come
Yeah,
through.
I would caution against that. You really have to deal with the person who shows up, because that's how they're showing up. You don't look at the potential, which women are trained to do, and then we get mad when men don't change. That's kind of stupid. So
Okay,
again,
nice.
you have to come back to you. Yeah.
No, I'm loving it because you know what? You're really starting to, baby. That's all I can say is, baby, you're really starting to speak my language. However, okay, here's a question for you. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, you say you don't look for the potential, but that person has to have come with something that sparked your interest and also had to have kept it long enough for you to say, I'm going to work with this and we're going to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that you're not aware of their potential, because that's going to come in regardless. But you got to really look at, like, how they're showing up right now. Is it more of a potential, or is it more of like the way they are right now actually really works? And if I get the added bonus stuff, awesome. There's a lot of people where they're not super happy with the person as they're showing up, but because there's this potential, we stick in relationships forever, hoping that that person will finally step up or live up to it. Um, and another sideline note with that is sometimes you have to really look at your expectations of the other person. Because if you're having expectations that they're going to grow and change as you grow and change, that's really not fair to them. You're not really giving them the freedom and the space to move at their own pace. So, managing your expectations, being aware of the potential, but also not diving so deep into that that you stop seeing the person in front of you.
Okay,
So,
awesome. So you've kind of talked a little bit about the discovery exercise to gain clarity. You said part of that is to write it down. Is there
mhm.
anything else that we should do?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to constantly reassess the relationships in your life. Like I said, pick the top five, and it's usually the first five that pop to mind. It's not that you have to like go and like, oh, well, this one's the most important. Sometimes you do the exercise and you're like, oh, my coworker for some reason is the one that's popping. It's probably because that's the one that has a little bit of toxicity, so it needs to get handled sooner than the others. Really
Hmm.
making a list and getting really clear on like, here are the qualities I'm enjoying, here are the qualities I'm not. What can change and what is probably a non-negotiable that will not change. And a lot of those things are, they would need to change it in order for you to stay. And that's
Okay.
another, you could look at that of like, what are the top three things in this relationship that would make me want to still stay invested?
Okay.
Is
Then
that something they're willing?
let's talk about those things though, because I think, and this is where I think women and men definitely have this conversation. I've had it before with women, with my friends, just in roundtable discussions. Are some of these things unrealistic? Or are you, or do you tell a woman that that's unrealistic, and she says, "Well, no, that's what I want, and that's what I deserve."
Mm-hmm.
Can those things be unrealistic?
I think you have to, it's different when you're wanting something and desiring something. That's not realistic. That's not unrealistic. That's what you actually desire. Expecting it, that's different from someone specifically. So I think that's what's fascinating is again, we take the person, we don't really see them as they are. We're not really inclusive of all of them. We imprint on them and go, here's the potential and here's what I want. And then we kind of push them to try to change to make it. That's like the number one thing with any relationship. If you just practice getting clear on who the person is in that moment without a need for them to change, without an expectation that they're going to, without them trying to fulfill a need, just actually enjoying them, that's like the golden nuggets. Those are the friends where you get around and you're like, your whole body relaxes. That's really, I mean, imagine having every relationship in your life like that, you know?
Girl, I'm in need of a massage. Let me see who I got around me right now. Well, and actually, let's kind of get to. I mean, look, I'm see. I told you these 30 minutes were going to go by super quick,
Mhm.
but so that takes me to all this that you've told us. So you've given us some golden nuggets, girl. Be my friend. Be my friend. Give me some really good golden nuggets. If you want to be Lauren's friend, check her out, Lauren Polly. She also has an award-winning book, multi-award-winning book called "The Other Side of Bipolar." So the next question, and also be also share this, because I'm going to have some really good stuff coming every Monday at 12:30 p.m. Come on back to IBEdamned presents Carpool Conversation. So the last question for you is, how do you set yourself free? How do you come to terms with whatever it is and set yourself free? They say the truth is going to set you free, but I know it's got to be much deeper than that.
Yeah, well, and this is interesting. It sounds really scary, but if you're willing to lose everyone and anything, how often do you stay attached to people that actually are toxic to you because you're not willing to go it alone? Or you're not willing to start something completely from scratch or start over again. That's like a lot of people's basic fear of like, well, this is somewhat okay. And if I let it go, what's going to come? I have no idea. Uh, Being willing to lose everything doesn't mean that you will lose everything. But when you're willing to lose that person, you actually show up differently. You get clearer in your communication, you get clearer with yourself, and you actually teach people how to treat you, which most of us don't do. No, I actually honor myself enough. I'm okay if you go away. And if you'd like to come along, even as I'm changing, that's cool too. But that's a relaxed, empowered stance where you're not trying to control the other person, but you're leading your life forward. And to me, that's like just that's the biggest golden nugget there is. You've got to be willing to go it alone, but you invite people along for the ride. But that sets you free like nothing different because you're not letting that fear of it going away control you or hold you back anymore.
You know what? And I'm looking at something, and it was coming to me before she even posted. But Adele says solitude. You have to be comfortable being alone. And I know
Mm-hmm.
so many people, at least a few people in my life that I know that could not be alone. If they were out of one relationship, they were in another. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to get into, okay, what is it that I want? Baby, when I tell you, I relished in my solitude. I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna be single, I'm gonna learn everything there is to learn about me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna learn what I expect from people. Because I think what you're saying is right. You have to be able to tell people what you expect. And I think we're not comfortable having that conversation.
Mm-mm. No. And a lot of the work that I do one to one with people is really about the self relationship first and then extending it from there. And I think unless you enjoy your own company, it gets really hard to truly enjoy other people's company. And unless you enjoy your own kind of creative relationship with yourself, the harder it is to actually extend that to others. But we're taught the opposite. We're taught that we have to seek missing parts of ourselves through other people and that you're never going to be happy until you feel your life that way. What if it's actually the reverse? It's here. You got to come home first, you know?
And what you're saying sound it's so great. But let me tell you, there's so many people who struggle with that. I mean, which keeps you in business.
And I think it's a growing edge. The more that you do, the easier it gets. And it doesn't mean you don't have relationships while you're trying to like figure all this stuff out. You can do both at the same time, but I think don't take your eyes off of you and your own relationship with yourself or expect that other people are going to fill that void for you. That's going to be a losing battle time and time again.
Girl, I love it. And look, right now it's time to get to. Everybody knows this time. I want to talk to you more, but it is time for rapid fire questions.
Uh-oh.
Woohoo! Yes, and like I told you, I think I did a pretty good one. It's not that bad. I think you're going to enjoy this one. For those folks who are watching, hey, I want you guys to play along. It's okay. These questions, of course, are for the guests. However, you guys are part of the tribe, and I want to see what your answers are as well. These rapid fire questions are picked randomly, and I do it because I just think it's a fun part of the show. So your first question is, um, if you had to write a bio of yourself in one sentence, what would it be?
A trailblazer who loves to cheer other people on.
Go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's why you got to be my friend. So it's done. You're my friend. Did you ever have a paranormal experience? Explain.
Yes, a lot of my work it comes with entity communication. So there's more than just one paranoid experience, but that's something that is an ever present experience in my life, and again another aspect to my work. A lot of my quote unquote mental illness issues when I was younger was actually spirit world awareness. So yeah, you can read more about that in my book.
Okay, I got you. Y'all heard it in her book, The Other Side of Bipolar. Okay, number three. What is your favorite app right now?
Favorite app? I actually love Mint. It's a money app that actually where all your money comes together because I have all these different accounts. Another thing about toxic relationships, sometimes it's a leaky valve for your money flows. So that's a really cool place to put all your money in one spot and you can visit it every day and kind of watch things grow. So I've been enjoying that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, loving it. Okay, number four. What is your craziest drunk story?
Believe it or not, I actually don't have one. I, I
Really?
grew I
Okay.
grew up with a mental health diagnosis and was on lots of meds for years and years. You don't drink alcohol with it, so I've actually never been drunk. Isn't that unusual? I've been tipsy before, but yeah,
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, can you drink wine?
I drink wine. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, girl, that's me. I'm a wino. I love my wine. So here we go. And your last question, and I'm taking this from actually Brianna Lewis's grandmother. Brianna, shout out to you. I saw this the other day and I thought it was hilarious. So the question is, what is the pettiest thing you would take from the house after a breakup?
They're like most cherished object.
Girl, you going to jail.
That's super petty, isn't it? You know, the one thing that they would
Yes,
probably
that
miss,
is.
I think, is the pettiest pettiest choice.
So you would take that person's like their, I don't know, something their grandmother gave them. That's horrible.
If your target is to be the most petty, absolutely. But yeah, I think
Okay, okay. So you know what I would take? I think when I actually answered the question that her grandmother asked, I would take all the fixtures. Like I would take the what did I say? The shower nozzle. I'm going into disassembling stuff. Me, I'm taking the door handle. I'm taking the keys, the remote. Yeah, that's what. Oh, somebody said grandma's ashes.
no.
What? That sounds like something you would do too. You say you would take the wait, all the toilet paper. Really,
Oh,
Jason?
jeez.
Toilet paper. Well, I hope they have to have a number two. All right. So let's see. I've looked no more questions. See, it was good. I missed the first part, and then okay. So this is just them talking. Oh, Brianna said I'm taking all the batteries out of everything. That's funny. And then let's see what Rhonda said. Let's see if I can get it up there. I can't see it. Rhonda said she's taking the TVs. That's when you know your partner. You know they're like TVs. So I totally understand that. But thank you so much, Lauren. Oh man, these 30 minutes went by so quickly. It's out here raining, but I don't even care about what's going on outside. But you gave us some really good stuff. I really do appreciate it. If you guys want to check her out, it is Lauren Polly. She has a multi-award winning book called The Other Side of Bipolar. I am your host, Danica. Y'all make sure to come back next Monday. I'm going to give you some more good topics, and I would love to hear from you. Lauren, again, thank you and be safe wherever you may be. Also, I just want to make mention of this because I wanted to talk about this earlier. When she and I got a chance to really talk and hook up with each other, I had learned that she had gone to a protest that day. I must tell you, you kind of held a special place in my heart, knowing that you went out to a protest in LA and participated on especially with what's going on around here. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, but I think at least you know for sure that you want to be on the right side of things. And again, from me, on a different note from what we do here at IBEdamned, I just want to say thank you for that alone.
Thank you. Yeah, time for change. Time for
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Stop streaming.